Hey guys, bad news. Once again, I've played a game that was just like so close to being unique and fun and amazing, but it just ended up falling flat in so many areas. It's almost becoming a trend where a game will literally be so close to just breaking through that barrier of whatever is going on with some of these games, but then it just comes back to the small little details or aspects of the game that it's just lacking in. I've recently been playing Immortals of Aveum, I think it's Aveum. Initially, I was having quite a bit of fun with the game, but despite it being relatively short, I still ended up being bored and left wanting more. Not to mention the game being $70 at launch for console, and I in no way think that is a justifiable price, and we're gonna talk about that a lot more. The game isn't horrible, don't get me wrong. At least for me, it just wasn't great. And it wasn't good. But before we get into the review, I just want to say thank you so much for clicking on this video. It's very appreciated, and I'm sorry that it's taken so long for me to get a video out, but I just moved back into school, and I've been super busy with that. I actually have class in like 40 minutes, so we're gonna have to wrap. I hope I can get this done in time because I don't want to record this later. I'm so tired. I just love practice. But with that being said, just sit back and relax, and we're gonna be talking about Immortals of Aveum. I just realized that video wasn't even playing, so sorry. So like always, we're gonna start off by talking about the story, which is not a strong suit in this game. And to be fair, I don't think it was a big focus of the game. And if it was, then that's really not good. But I also want to say I don't want to come across as like overly negative because I know I sound like I'm very negative. And I don't want to be like nitpicky, but I really think I have to be. The fact that this game is asking for the same price as these huge AAA games that are like 30 hours long with half the playthrough and half the substance or less. I think as a consumer, I deserve to be a little selective about how I spend my money. If this was like a $50, $40 game, that'd be fine. But the fact that they charge this price, I think warrants some strong emotions, I feel, about certain negative aspects of the game. And the story, to put it frankly, is just very, very weak. The game takes place in Aveum, shocker, and it's been riddled with death and pain because of the Ever War, which is a war where the kingdoms of Aveum are fighting over huge amounts of power. Magic is spread throughout Aveum through something called ley lines, whose power can be used by the Magni, or a certain special group of individuals. Unfortunately, due to this seemingly never-ending war, all that remains to fight are the kingdoms of Lucium, which is who the main character you play as, Jack, fights for, and Rasharn and their big head honcho, Sandrak, who is immensely powerful. Now, Jack is a Magnus with a rare ability to control all three colors of magic, while most people can only control one. While initially being from the slums of Saren, after his whole town was attacked and losing some important people to him, he goes on to join the Lucian army, and furthermore becomes an immortal and immediately joins the fight against Sandrak. And obviously no spoilers here, but the sense of war and strife isn't really felt for me, honestly, like at all. The characters are essentially dropping this exposition of war and how much people have been affected and how horrible it is, but it never really feels that serious. Like with the tone, everything seems so unrushed and calm, and like no one has a care in the world until the dialogue or the cutscenes start. I mean, even after a really big and horrible event happens, which is caused by Sandrak, no one seems to miss a beat. Everything's like business as usual, except when the cutscenes start, and then everyone's like, oh, this is no good, this is terrible. It literally feels like no one had any idea that it happened in the first place. I know this game is trying to be different and unique, but unfortunately it feels so much like Forspoken, but as like a first-person shooter. And that's probably the worst thing you could ever say about a game. The characters are also just not very likable to me. They're all like quirky and funny, but they're annoying and insufferable. I only really like one character in the game, and he was an assassin. He just had a really nice voice, and I liked the dialogue that he had. It was interesting and it was unique, and it was different from what the other people were saying. He had a completely different tone.
I mean, maybe that was the point. You not being seen. Like you were covering us or something.
Considering what happened, perhaps I should have been. But no, I was away taking care of a few things. An ambassador of Kylay caught wind of the meeting in the Seer.
Yeah, they didn't make it.
Funny that.
But the dialogue itself is just so corny, and it's sometimes painful. It's not always bad, but like I said, the tone is just all out of whack. It just isn't there. And since I unfortunately made the comparison of Forspoken, I might as well continue with another nitpick, which is the lack of substance. I want to start off by saying the graphics are absolutely stunning. It is an amazing game to look at. Like truly it is. It's some of the best I've seen in a while, minus some of the artifacting I got, which was very weird to see, and the graphics failing to load. Sometimes textures not loading right. But honestly, the setting of the story, it's just amazing to look at. You have like mountainous ranges and buildings, and then the slums where Jack grew up. I thought the details in there were also very well done and thought out. But they just lack substance in my opinion. And for a 12-hour fully priced game, I expect to have fun exploring the beautiful world that they created. It's like they made the graphics the main priority and they were like, it's good enough. At least they'll have like good things to look at. There's chests and crates and you actually get some nice gear and items from them, but that's it. There's also like collectible documents and stuff, but I mean, I just think there was so much room for more. I feel like they focus so much on the graphics is that they forgot to like add into, like, it looks amazing, but there's nothing there, and that's the problem. But next I want to talk about the combat, and I did find it a little disappointing. And I have to admit, it initially was very entertaining, and it seemed unique enough. However, once you get a few hours into the game, you start realizing that not only does it get very repetitive and stale, but it's not nearly as unique as it's like trying to convince you that it is. Essentially, this game is a first-person shooter disguised as a magic-based combat system, and it's not particularly designed well. In the combat, you use something called sigils that allow you to use the power of the 3 different magic types or colors. It's important to note that there are different sigils for each color of magic that are supposed to add more variety to the play style that you have, but they don't. They do not at all. I just didn't notice a difference, and I pretty much used the same sigils for the entire game, upgrading them of course, but I didn't change my sigils because they didn't do anything. Anyways, the first magic color is blue magic, which is basically like a sniper rifle, which is exactly like a sniper rifle. It's the most effective in long range precise shots with a decent amount of ammo. Next is the red color, which is like a shotgun. It is like incredibly powerful, but you end up sacrificing the amount of ammo that you have before you have to reload. I had one shot of it, but it was super strong, like it was one-shotting almost any enemy. I thought it was a good trade-off for having one ammo. And last is the green power, which is like, you guessed it, an automatic weapon. It deals far less damage than the other two, but at very high speeds and holding way more ammo slots. So again, it's another trade-off you're gonna have. There's also something called Fury spells, which are more specialized and can deal more damage, which are Torrent, Shatter, and Bash. These are all actually some of my favorite things about the combat because I think they are actually unique. I feel like I wish there was more of them. I feel like there should have been more than just the 3 because it really did add versatility and they were fun to use. You also have something called Lash, which is basically like Scorpion from Mortal Kombat. I mean, if you know, you have to know. Meaning you grapple onto enemies and drag them over to you, which is by far my favorite combat edition. I don't know why, but I used it so much and I really liked it. I mean, yeah, it's different from a lot of games I've played. You don't always have the opportunity to grapple enemies towards you, so I think it's actually a unique aspect of the game that they added. It really adds to the combos that you're able to execute. You also have limpets, which are green orbs you shoot to slow enemies down, and I rarely used it. Honestly, I don't know why. I just didn't really find it that helpful for me. And you also have disrupt, which I used a little more, but I still didn't really use it that much. And it basically just stuns enemies. There's another spell called animate, which isn't a combat spell, but you can basically like move certain objects, only specific ones that have like a certain sigil or certain marking on them, and bend them or animate them to your will. And sometimes it looks very well done. Other times it does not. I also think it was a bit unnecessary because it really didn't add anything to the gameplay. Like if they took it out completely, I wouldn't care. I don't think a lot of people would. Blink is a defensive spell, which is basically dodging, but only once before you have to recharge, and I hate that. But I understand why they did it because it could have easily been spammed because it's a powerful dodging spell. But it's not a big deal. You can upgrade it later, but it just like the fact that I can only dodge once it's unique. I'll give them that. It is unique, but I don't like it. And it's a pretty long cooldown time. Obviously you can upgrade it later to be shorter, but I just don't know. I don't know about that one. And of course you have a shield. There's nothing special. It breaks if it, gets hit too much. And you can upgrade it later so that you can parry with the shield and that, you won't take any damage. Finally, you have a Dominion spell, which is called Immolate. It's just a combination of all 3 spells and it fires like a laser. It's an ultimate attack that is pretty satisfying to pull off, and it literally nukes everything that it touches and is very overpowered. It's like there's a lot of elements in this combat system, and for some reason it just comes off as only decent. It's just nothing exciting or unique. The whole combat system thing seems super contrived and it isn't pulled off as well as I think it could have been. It's just disappointing that it just seemed like they wanted it to be so different, but I feel like they could have made it different, but they really only focus on the graphics, in my opinion, because the graphics look very good, and I feel like graphics are sometimes too important sometimes. Like obviously we have these big you know, high powered graphics cards and all these, the ability to play games at such a high like graphical quality that I feel like the standards for quality of like actual gameplay have dropped as well. Just because the game looks good, we still have to have some substance in it. The game still has to play well. I mean, the graphics look good, but I still have artifacting and I still have textures not loading in. I know it's not like an open world exploration game, but the fact that they do have exploration in them, because it's not like a linear path like there is, like you can branch away and you can do your own thing. I do think it's weird that there's not like more enemy encounters. Like if you go, I feel like there should have been more enemy encounters. This goes back to the whole like tone of the game being a little weird. Like there's a war going on and you'll go through an area once and you'll fight the enemies, but if you go through that area again, nothing else happens. You will never see another enemy again. There is a war going on. Why am I never seeing enemies? I'm just walking through the freaking, I'm just, you know, frolicking through the lilies, and we're talking about people dying. We're talking about how terrible this ever war has been. It doesn't feel dark enough for me. If you're gonna, I understand the game. I feel like it doesn't take itself seriously enough, but it also does, because then there's also points in the game where they take more of a serious tone in the story, and there's some parts of the story that I actually did enjoy and I was like, oh, this is actually interesting. But then like then they'll crack a little joke and they want to start laughing and being corny, and it's like, pick what you want. Do you want to take it seriously, or do you want, you know, or do you want it to be kind of a joking atmosphere? But they keep pushing this narrative that how terrible this war is. They literally say it in every cutscene that this war is terrible, it has to go. And we only really saw that in the beginning of the game when they were in the slums in Sarin, where Jack came from. That's when you really only saw the effects of the war, because everyone was like, you know, kind of struggling. It wasn't the best environment ever. They were like trying to take this corruption off the walls and stuff. But you never really see it. I mean, there's corruption around the entire world, or the entire game, that you have to take out, fighting these giant snakes and stuff. But I just found it weird that there was no enemy combat encounters. I guess so they didn't want you farming, you know, farming for stats and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's a war. That's the narrative you're pushing. This game, you hear people saying, oh, I'm sorry, it's sad someone died, and they just turn back around. Like, it's not, and it literally is so similar to Forspoken. It's just a first-person Forspoken version, because with less dialogue, less cringy dialogue, but the dialogue is still cringy as hell. And there's times when I'm like, okay, come on, y'all, let's get back to let's get to going. Unfortunately, it also lacks the substance I thought of Forspoken, because Forspoken also was a very good-looking game, but there's nothing there. This game is obviously, it's far better as far as like the buildings and structures they have from Forspoken, but it does struggle in the aspect that there's nothing there for you to want to like explore through. There is some things, like I said, there's chests, things to collect, but it's really not, there should have been so much more. Considering the game is so short, they should have slam packed it with a lot more stuff for $70, mind you. For me, the story was very predictable. I was pretty much like guessing everything that was going to happen next. There was one point, I think it threw me off a little bit, but it really didn't, because I was still expecting that to happen. All in all, this is probably one of my shorter reviews because it was more negative. The next review I have will actually, I'm not going to say what it is, but it's going to be Lies of P, but I'm not going to tell you how I feel about it, but it's good. I'm excited. Anyways, I have to go to class soon. So yeah, I don't want to seem so negative, because I feel like in the last video I made was literally talking about my favorite game ever, and then I'm just dropping right back down to 0. No, this game isn't, I'm not going to give it a 0. If this game was $40, I would give it like a 7.5, maybe an 8 if it was for that price, but it's hard for me to gauge because I don't know. But considering the fact that it was full price, it's a 5. It's not terrible, but it's not good. It's decent. Depending on who you are as a player, you may be like, oh, a little better, I'll give it an 8. Or you may be like, oh, this is shit, I'll give it a 0. So I'm not here to try to sway your opinions. I'm just giving you my own. If you have any different opinions, I'd love to hear it in the comments, you know. Negative, good, I don't, you know, whatever you want to say, just, you know, drop it down there. Please subscribe, like, I really appreciate it. You don't have to, but it would be nice. I don't have an outro. I didn't write that in the script. If you can tell, this is a very rough outro, and I haven't filmed a video in a long time. Obviously, it's very obvious to tell when I go a while without making a video, because I don't know how to end it. It's just a decent game that was hyped up, I think a little too much. I don't know who's at fault for that, but this isn't a game that I enjoyed really. You may enjoy it, and that's fine. I'm not here to like tell you don't like this game, it's terrible. But if you haven't tried the game yet, I would recommend getting it at a lower price. I would not recommend getting this game at full price, honestly. Just get it used, get it on sale, on Game Pass or something. That's it for Immortals of Aveum. Stay tuned for some new videos, and I thank you guys so much for watching as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Oh. Okay, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.